Yeah, right. Yeah. It's already 8 o'clock. Yeah. You go home.
Recording.
Serious.
That last minute's always such the longest minute.
We're not involved, but.
Try it right side.
Yeah. It's true funny.
Sorry.
There we go. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the study session of May 28th. Danielle, will you do a roll call, please?
I will. Councilmember Blush,
Here.
Councilmember Stearns, Councilmember Gilmore,
Here.
Mayor Onisco,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sherman,
Here.
Councilmember Sapp,
Here.
and Councilmember.
Here.
All right. Tonight, Fire Chief Jeff Snyder has, oh, thank you, by the way. Tonight, Fire Chief Jeff Snyder has an update about our fire department. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. First off, I want to thank Mayor Nisco and Deputy Mayor Sherman for the opportunity and the rest of the council for the opportunity to speak tonight. This is pretty open-ended in the sense of I wasn't 100% sure. There's certain things I wanted to cover and then certain things that I wasn't exactly sure where to go. So I just thought, I'm gonna do it like I was telling a story to a buddy of mine or so forth. So as you already said, I'm Jeff Snyder, I'm the fire chief with Central Mason Fire EMS. Graduated Shelton High School, grew up in Mason Lake. Although I didn't live in town, Shelton was at hometown. I remember playing on the Tolly when the Tolly was at Brewer Park. When he left there, he went on to the old Dairy Queen before they built the new one. I remember when McDonald's wasn't in town before they built the first McDonald's or where it is now. Why that was important to me was when I was a kid, I would jump my bike, ride the 14 miles from Mason Lake into town to play at the arcade Shadowfax, for those who remember that place. Play at the arcade, and then I had to go to McDonald's and eat a burger and get a Coke, and so I had enough energy to ride my bike back home again. I started in District 5 in February of 1987 as a volunteer. I was hired in 1992 as a firefighter EMT. I've worked virtually every position in the department, from the firefighter EMT to lieutenant, captain, battalion chief, training officer, operations officer, deputy chief, and then took over when Mike Patty retired as the fire chief in August of 2022. One of the most common questions I get is, what is CMFE, right? Central Mason Fire EMS. The trend many years ago was to change names to something more regional. We were District 5 before that, but people ask me, what is Central Mason Fire EMS? And it started with District 5, which was the Allen Victor Fire Department in 1953, and basically moved south all the way through the 70s and 80s until it hit the border of the city of Shelton. In 2008, the city of Shelton and District 5 started a process of an ILA, which provided fire protection to the city by District 5. It was mutually beneficial on both sides. District 5 needed it, and District 5 needed it to help with funding and support, and the city needed it for the same reasons. So the two got together. Next came Mason County Medic 1, which was purchased by District 5 several years ago. That in itself was odd for a fire department to buy a private ambulance company. It's not happened very often in the history of Washington State. Next came Mason County Fire District 11 with the the merger of District 11 into the fire district. And that happened in 2023. Soon Mason 3 will merge in. So Central Mason is all of that, but we're still Mason County Fire District 5. That's our legal name. It hasn't changed. Where do we cover? That's the next question. People say, where, what areas do you cover? Well, it's large. And there's really two answers to that. I'm gonna start on the far north end of the fire district. Basically, if you're driving down Highway 3 and you get to North Mason High School, that's our north border. We cover North Mason High School, Allen, Victor, the Victor all the way down 302 to the Pierce County line, the Lakeland Village, which is up above Allen, Mason and Benson Lakes, Emerald Lake, the Island View area, the Anthony Road area, Pickering, which includes Phillips Lake and Spencer Lake, all of Harston Island, Agate, Timber Lake, Shorecrest, Deer Creek, Bay Shore, Lake Limerick, Johns Prairie, Bucuna Prairie, Jensen and Brockdale roads, all the way out to Pine de Rosa. Additionally, we cover the Island Lake and Oak Park areas. Those are areas that we took over with the merger of Mason 11. And last but not least, and mostly not the least important to us, is the city of Shelton, which we serve through an ILA. In total, CMFE covers approximately 165 square miles that we provide fire and EMS protection. But I said there was two answers, and that's because our medic units actually provide paramedic advanced life support to 7 other fire districts, along with the Washington State Penitentiary and the Washington State Patrol Academy. Our medic units cover an area of approximately 700 square miles. If you add in the parts of Olympic National Park, that expands our area that are in Mason County, that expands our coverage to 900 square miles. So we cover a decent amount of area with our rigs. Who are we? That's another question I get. And really the truth is, our product is people. That's who we are. Our firefighters, our medics, our front office staff, our mechanic, all of them. I always tell the people our product's people. We have 54 career firefighters, 28 firefighter EMTs, 26 firefighter paramedics. The number jumps with the District 3 merger that's coming on board. The number will jump to FE positions will jump to almost 60. So we'll go from 54 to 60. We also have 5 day shift positions: 1 fire marshal, 1 deputy fire marshal, 1 firefighter mechanic, 1 firefighter facility, and 1 captain of training and health and safety. Our administrative staff consists of our 3 front office gals. The ladies up front are the backbone of our operation. If any one of them were to leave, our boat would stop moving forward. They truly are the backbone of our operation. I have 3 chief officers, myself as the fire chief, Greg Gates down there in the end is deputy chief. Next to him is Brandon Searles as a division chief with us. And we have 5 commissioners. That's 70 employees counting all day, but there's more. We have 28 volunteers, 3 volunteer chaplains. So total, we have about 101 members of Central Mason Fire. All that staff above runs out of 5 fully staffed stations: 5-1 in Allen, 5-3 at Mason Lake, 5-4 at Limerick, 5-7 at Pickering, and 5-8 with the city of Shelton. With the merger, Mason 3, which is their station 3-1, it'll turn into our station 5-2. That'll become a 6 fully staffed station in the fire district. And lastly, we have station 511, which is partially staffed. We use volunteers, overflow career staff, and our auxiliary firefighters to staff at 70 to 80% of the time. Within the future, we're hoping as soon as possible to staff that full time. Apparatus, we have 9 fire engines, 9 ambulances, 4 brush engines, 3 tenders, or what you guys might call water tankers, 2 ladder trucks, 1 air support unit, and 15 staff vehicles. So 43 pieces of equipment. With the merger of Mason 3, that brings another 8 to 10 additional pieces of equipment on board. At the Shelton station, which is getting more down to brass tacks here in the city, at the Shelton station, station 5-8, our minimum staffing, daily staffing is 5. That's our minimum, which is 1 battalion chief, 2 on an engine, and 2 on a medic unit. It's not uncommon for us to have additional staffing with either paid staff that were heavy that day, which if that's the case, we bring that additional staffing typically down to station 5-8. Or we have our volunteers or our reserve firefighters that'll pull shift. Most of our volunteers don't live in the fire district anymore. The days of respond from home volunteers are virtually gone. That's something that everyone's dealing with the same thing. We do have one area of the fire district, which is the Mason 11 area. We still do have some respond from home volunteers up there that help support that station when it's not fully staffed. When we have these extra people that just get put under units, depending on their training and their certifications, they either augment, we put a 3rd or a 4th on a rig, or sometimes it allows us to staff additional rigs like a ladder truck, a brush truck, or an additional aid unit. Out of Station 5-8, one engine, one ladder, one medic unit, one brush truck, and one command buggy. Our call volume in 2023 for CMFE was 10,432 total responses. That's 28.5 calls a day. Now, that itself, 28.5 calls in a 24-hour period is busy for us, but it doesn't come like that. We'll have days we'll run 40 calls and we'll have days we run 15 calls. When I was a battalion chief, the busiest I ever went, it was not a non-storm day, and why I say that is when we have a winter storm or we have a windstorm, our call volume gets exponentially increased. So it kind of fluffs those numbers a little bit because they're usually branch trees down, things like that. But my busiest shift as a battalion chief for 40 hours, I ran 68 calls in 48 hours. The crews work, they're busy. My crews I have good people. I'm going to get a little more specific to the city of Shelton. In 2023, CMFE responded to 3,662 responses within the city. Out of those, 2,798 were EMS calls. The other 886 were really everything else: fires, hazards, conditions, service calls. We average about 2 house fires a month. And again, that comes in streaks. We'll have a month, we'll have 5, we'll have a month, we'll have 0. And so you just don't know. And that's only house fires. There's a ton of other smaller incidents and fires that we deal with: beauty barrack fires, electrical wall outlet fires, air conditioning or heating units that have problems, you name it. When I first got in the fire service, I had an officer tell me one time, people call the fire department when they don't know what to do. And that is the truest statement I've ever heard. Because some of the stuff that we get called for, it's like, I don't know where in the playbook that says we're supposed to handle this, but our crews go out and they do either try to help them with it or we direct them where they need to go. When I became fire chief in 2022, I had several goals. One was to complete the merger with Mason 11 into CMFE. This was mutually beneficial, just as the ILA was with the city, and how it benefits the city now and how it benefits Central Mason is it puts the station on top of the hill on the north side of us, our north side of town, which helps us to keep more units available. If there's an incident in town and engine 5-8 or the crews are tied up, before station 511 came into the mix, the next station was coming out of Lake Limerick or coming out of Spencer Lake. So that's a long run. And so with them coming on board, it actually has lowered the response times within the city and helped the city itself. That was completed. The merger of Mason 11 was completed June of 2023. Number 2 was to staff another station. When I first became the fire chief, I said I wanted to staff a station in the central part of our fire district. We had a large hole, an area that we were not covering very well. My staff and I worked very hard. The lid lift absolutely was essential to make that happen. And we were able to staff Station 5-3, which is at Mason Lake, in the central part of the fire district. And that happened in May of 2023. Again, how does this help the city? How does it help? It puts more resources in the central part of the fire district, which means those resources that could come this way are more available. The third thing I wanted to work on was the merging of the Grapeview Fire Department into Central Mason. Again, for the same reasons, mutually beneficial. It's at the north end of our fire district. It helps us to support our north units. When I used to talk to people when I was back in the day when Chief Yates and I were working medic units together, and I would tell people from other fire departments, our backup is 21 miles away. And they would look at us like we had horns going over our heads. Are you serious? I'm like, yeah, our only backup is 21 miles away. And over the years that we only had 2 staff stations this time. So having 6 is huge, and having 2 of them as close as they are in the Grapeview Fire Station and the Allen Fire Station really helps. That should be completed July 1st of 2024. We are on track to actually have that done. 4th was to upgrade our fleet with the purchase of 2 additional medic units, which we did. We also remount our boxes on our medic units. So when you look at an ambulance and you see the square box on the back, that part is we can refurb those. The chassis are really what wear out. It's not so much the boxes. So we take them down to Braun Northwest and Lewis County. They pull the box off, they refurb the box, rewire it, and make it all refloor it, reupholster it, do the things they need to do, and we put that on a new chassis. Typically, we remount a box 3 times before we finally toss the box. Gets to the point we can't do it has structural issues, usually with aluminum welds and so forth. So we were able to do that. The other piece of that puzzle was power lift gurneys. As society has gotten larger, and I know it's not, I shouldn't say that's happening, but it has. As society's gotten larger, we use power lift gurneys to help our people pick up larger people. They're basically electric hydraulic lifts that are attached to the gurney that helps them pick up patients and put in the back of the ring. It saves our people's backs and saves our people from injuries, shoulder injuries and so forth, so forth. Each one of those gurneys is roughly about $50,000. And we bought, I believe 6 of them. So that was something I was proud to complete for our crews. That also happened in 2023. The last was to upgrade our ladder truck. This was also completed in fall of 2023. And I think what I want to talk tonight with the council about is that this was a purchase that was a partnership with the city of Shelton. In the ILA, it discusses a lot of these issues, and one of them is discusses payment and so forth in these. And the city and the fire district moved forth with purchasing and replacing our 1991 105-foot Pierce, which is the big yellow one you see driving around, and we call it Big Bird. You guys can see if you can figure out why we call it that. It's up to you. And we replaced that with a 2013 109-foot Rosenbauer, which the crews have affectionately named Clifford, the big red dog. And you'll see that one outside when you see it because it's big and it's red. We really went back and forth about how we were going to do this, whether we were going to buy new, we were going to buy used. And we went down the used route. I think it was the best route for the taxpayers of the city. I think it was the best route for the taxpayers of the county. And I'll explain why. A brand new ladder truck that would meet the specifications of that piece of equipment that's out front right now is $2 to $2.5 million. And that was old numbers. I will tell you, I think they're probably a little bit higher than that now, but we'll stay with the $2 to $2.5 million. And the delivery on that's 2 to 3 years out. So if we were ordered today, we wouldn't see it for 3 years. And so, you know, we knew we needed to replace Big Bird. Although it's in really good shape, we're going to keep it as a reserve equipment. We're going to put some money into it that needs to be done. It'll be out of service for a while to get some repairs done. But we are going to keep it. We start searching for a ladder truck. And I'm going to give credit where credit's due. Chief Searles is actually the one that hunted this down and found it. It was a truck out of Texas. Like I said, the 2013 Rosenbauer for $600,000. We negotiated with the sellers. It was a brokerage that sells used apparatus, and we were able to get a price down a little bit. And with shipping costs and stuff, it worked out to be $590,000. So that was split in half with the city of Shelton. So $295,000 that the city stepped up and paid with us, which was a huge help. Now there's some advantages to this besides having a newer piece of equipment. One of the disadvantages we had of Big Bird was the yellow ladder truck is it was just what we call a straight stick. It had no pump. It was just a stick. So a ladder truck has 172, 176 feet of ground ladders, which these guys will show you when they open up the back of ours. There's all different sizes and lengths and so forth. And obviously it has the ladder, which is what everybody sees. In order for us to flow water through that, we had to have another engine because there's no pump, there's no tank, it's just a pipe that runs up the ladder. And so the disadvantage to that is with engine 5.8, it's tied up on another incident, which we have happened. We'll be on a car fire and we'll get a house fire at the same time, or we'll be on a CPR where the engine crew is already working and we'll get a house fire or something. We had no backup pumper. Now we would move units out of the county into the city to try to make up for that, but that also ties up units. Going back to what I said in the beginning is that when you're covering 700 to 900 square miles and you take 2 medic units out of service and out of 10,000 runs, we get backed up pretty quickly. So for us to be able to get a piece of equipment that takes less manpower and is less manpower intensive and time intensive to use was really important. Plus it gave us backup engine in the city that was always in the city. And per the ILA, we're required to do that. So we wanted to make sure we stayed within that. I hear a bunch of questions about it. One of them, I was out there working one day and one of the local retired dentists that was walking around town said, how come we need a ladder truck? It's the tallest building in town is 4 stories. And I said, well, it's not actually about height, it's about reach. And my reasoning for that is by the time you park the ladder, our old ladder truck, our first ladder truck was a 50-footer. And by the time we parked it at the end of the driveway and we extended it, we were lucky we reached the building because you burn up 50 feet of stick just getting to the house, getting to the building. And so when we went to purchase a second ladder truck, we looked at 75-footers because you can stay with a single axle. There's some advantages to that. But again, we were going to deal with the same issues. So we decided to go ahead and move on to 100 plus feet. The advantage of when you need a ladder truck and you need an aerial master stream, which is what you see on TV when it's a big dog and pony show, when they're burning down half a block somewheres. The only thing that works in that situation is a ladder truck. Hand lines from the ground don't work. 2.5-inch hand lines from the ground, doesn't matter, it doesn't work. And the way that you cut off fire is to get above it when you have a large complex like that. A great example of that is at the Port of Shelton, when those are, remember the port fire, when the old sawtooth building was burning, what stopped the transfer of that fire into the next building was the ladder truck. Although the crews that got there beforehand were doing a great job, and they were doing everything they could, we needed to get above it and cut it off. And we did that, and within 20 to 30 minutes of the ladder truck being in place, we knew we weren't gonna lose any more of that building. We had written off what we were gonna lose. And so that, again, that's where height comes into play. So it's not so much about height, it's about reach. The other benefit, I think, to the city and to the taxpayers and to business owners in the city is what's called the WSRB rating, which is the Washington Survey and Rating Bureau. And if you're not familiar with the Washington Survey Rating Bureau is what rates the fire department. So they come in, they look at your training and equipment and stations and staffing and you name it, they look at it. And then they come with a number. There's number 10 and there's number 1. In the state of Washington, there's not a lot of number 1 fire departments. The Bellevue Fire Department's the number 1. Puget Sound Fire is number 1. There's some other ones around. Most are 6s and 7s, 5s. And so us having a ladder truck and us having a backup ladder truck is a significant step to us to lower our WSRB rating. We were very close to a 4 when we were rated last time. We were due to be rated in 25, and our hope is that we can get down to a 4. We've been working diligently on some of the issues that we had that kept us from getting to a 4. Some of those are outside of our control. To be perfectly honest with you, the water system in the city is part of the problem, because there's flow rate problems that flows are too low, and so WSRB rates us down on that. So some of it is external that we don't have any control over, but we're really close to doing that. So the benefit is when you have a lower number, your home insurance or your business insurance is lower because the fire protection is better. So that benefits the taxpayers. To give you an idea, and I only know this because we were talking with District 3 merger. One of the people in the room happened to be an insurance person and mentioned, because District 3's WSRB rating post merger goes from a 7 to what we thought was a 5. The truth is it's actually a 6, but that's not the point. The point was it was $176 a year savings from going to that 7 to a 5. It's about $100 a year per person to go from a 7 to go from that 7 to a 6. So and the rate gets better the more the number gets lower. So when you go from a 5 to a 4, that savings is actually greater than going from a 6 to a 5. That makes sense. So those are some of the benefits of buying Clifford and for us in the city. Clifford's outside, and here after I'm done, I'm gonna let you guys ask any questions you'd like to ask. When we're done answering questions, or Mark, if you have something you want to bring up, we'll go outside and Captain Zipper, Mr. Mustache back there, and Captain Ward will help show you guys the ladder truck. And then I don't know if the medic is here or not. We did bring the medic in, but I think we're gonna try. They're trying. Get the medic in over here, so you guys, if you haven't seen in the back one, or if you only stare at the ceiling when you're right in the back one, you can only see what the rest of it looks like. So, any questions? Yeah.
Recently, the county commissioners declared state of emergency in the county. How does that affect our Central Mission parks?
Central Mason wasn't really overly affected. We have what's called the trauma license for all these fire districts that we cover. We have the trauma license, which means we provide the ALS services. So when Mesa 12, when they declared a state of emergency and took over Mesa 12, or however you want to word that, it didn't really change a lot for us because we were already responding out there. Now, we did provide support services to the incident management team. We had two of our individuals that went down and helped the incident management team along, and we most certainly stayed in touch with the state of Washington. The state of Washington got a hold of us and wanted to make sure there was going to be no changes in the ALS system or the EMS transport system, which we assured there was nothing changing on our end, that we would continue to respond. And just as we always have. So, good question. Yes.
Two questions. One, we know how it's affected our officers. How is the DCRs help making your jobs easier?
Oh, most certainly, most certainly, because we're able to call them, and so we're not tying up law enforcement. And then oftentimes, I can tell you actually a personal story. I live in town. I live up on Ingleside. One of the people that DCR interacts with, ended up in my front yard. My wife called and said, there's someone in our front yard. And I said, okay, and I wandered out there. And I knew who this person was from the days of responding when I was a battalion chief. And, you know, I called dispatch, said, hey, I got so-and-so here. They're clearly having a moment, their moment. And, you know, and they said, great. And I said, and they said, do you need DCR or law? And I said, DCR is fine. They'll come up. And so DCR got there. They knew who this person was. The person knew who they were. And it was handled really well. I know the crews appreciate it. Yeah.
Second question, we've been talking on and off over the years of annexation, the benefits to you and fire department, the benefits to the city. Where are we at on that?
Mark and I talked about it several times. There were some house building items on our side that Central's working on. I think we're really close to having all that stuff. I think I feel pretty confident that we could move forward. And I know that there's some that Mark and I and those that are going to be involved need to discuss the strategy on the other side. At one point, we talked about 25, I think. I don't believe it'll be 25 days. We better get started. So we're probably looking at a 26 would be the soonest we would try to rerun that. You know, I think there's some hurdles we're gonna have to overcome.
It's a strategic process, right? As any campaign is, and particularly when you're talking about a district that could potentially grow to incorporate the city of Shelton. At the same time, you have a lot of constituency that you have to provide the information to and educate and inform. Right now, we are contributing or paying for the services to about $1.8 million a year for fire and EMS services. Now we have the EMS levy within the city of Shelton that collects about $561,000 annually. That's basically a transfer. It's really a couple $100 difference and what goes in and out. And we provide and perform some of the maintenance on the building at 5-8 downtown. So that's still under city ownership. So we maintain essentially if Central Mesa moved out of it tomorrow, we would still have a functioning facility. So HVAC, electrical systems and things like that we still provide maintenance and operations to. So again, about 1.8 million. We have to communicate what that does to our community, to constituents in the city of Shelton, what that means to them, as well as everybody else out in Central Mesa. It can be confusing to say the least on how taxation works, especially when you talk about our ad valorem and what we collect and how that's kind of communicated to as a per thousand rate within with two individuals' tax rates. So probably another workshop more specifically addressed to that kind of discussion and joint meetings with Central Mason's board coming up, so we could get a plan put together if that's truly what both Central Mason and the city wants to do.
Yeah, I think for us, I can speak, people ask me, especially in the county, well, why do I want to do this? Why do this? And I tell people, think of like you own a home and you have renters, is that for long-term planning purposes to know, although we've had a great relationship with the city for all these years, and it really has been a really good relationship, things change, right? And for both sides. And I don't foresee that, but at some point, we need to be able to do long-term planning and say, yes, this is going to be in the game 20 years from now, for long-term planning purposes and of course, much more short-term. But I think that I was described as you have renters and all of a sudden the renters move out. Now you got to pay them more, and so, yeah.
This is a trend that we're seeing all over the place with RFAs, regional fire authorities, annexations. I think most recently Thurston County probably was the end of last year with Olympia and Tumwater, although I don't think it passed. it's a trend. It's where we're going. I think we're seeing these smaller fire districts, especially rural fire districts, start to think about how they can provide the services to their constituency when you have another rural fire district right next door. You have some duplicate administration, right? Duplication of equipment, apparatus, some staff, and it's more efficient just to combine and provide those services over time. We saw that in 2008 when the city of Shelton combined with what was Mason 5 at that point. And I think this is annexation is a progression in that lifespan, right? Just comes about.
Cool. I know everybody wants to see this fire truck, but so potentially we've got, what, 500 homes maybe in the next year or even two? I mean, pretty immediate, I think some stuff starting now. What, are we ready for that?
Yeah, I was talking with both Mark and with Jay about, looking at some impact fees, because there is impact to us. We adding, 200 is maybe not, but when you start to talk about 500 and 1,000 and beyond, most certainly there's an impact to fire protection and staffing levels and the things that the fire district has to continue to provide. You guys are the same boat we are. You're so to what percent you live for every year, so the demand grows much faster than what our budget grows. So yeah, it's something that we have to discuss.
Chief, you mentioned water capacity. We talked about storage a number of times and the need for storage to meet the fire code, meet flow. Those are things that are addressed through our GFC programs, right? Our impact fees for new construction on water services and connections, those pay for those capital improvements. Fire system, schools, parks, those are all considered eligible for impact fees or general facility charges because the existing tax rate doesn't pay for those capital services and the expansion of those. So if they need another fire station, fire facility at some point, that's gonna come most likely through supplemental funding, probably a bond issue. You can offset that bond issue by having those impact fees in place and collect some money up front to do that.
And do they have to be their own entity away from the city for that?
And then we can
No.
work through the comp planning through the city.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, because we're looking at 2,000 homes in what, the next 10 years, potentially just.
We hope so. The Meadows Edge building permits, I think, are released maybe this week, so 36 houses. We anticipate the hearing examiner's ruling on Olympic Heights to come in this week, and so that should give preliminary plat approval. They can start turning dirt this year with the hope that by next spring, maybe they're going vertical. And that's 199 houses, and at this point, that's not a phased development. They would move through that entire 199 in one process.
Other questions?
Great presentation.
Fire
A lot
marshal
of
services in your
information.
plan. I want to touch on fire marshal services. That's really important to city's operations. Within the interlocal agreement with Central Mason, they provide fire marshal services. That's an additional fee outside of the fire protection services. What we did in the past, we paid a flat fee annually for these fire marshal services. So that's an individual that reviews all our development permits, does regular inspections, does fire investigation in the city of Shelton. About 2 years ago, I think.
We changed
I think
that,
it's
yeah.
close to 2 years ago.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we implemented a rate structure within our fire permits and operational permits. That hasn't necessarily proved to be as I think it was aspirational, I guess, you should say that they would offset the cost of providing those services. So that's something I want to bring back to you.
Yeah, we added
Look at
fees
Yeah.
they could charge,
Yeah.
pass through fees and, yeah, so.
So
I
we
remember that.
became much more proactive in our inspections and what we call operational permits. So now, depending on the occupation and class of that occupation, there may be an annual, a biannual, semi-annual, sometimes inspection, and there's a fee attached to that to pay for that
And
service.
there's a problem with collecting, correct? With who's gonna collect, and how you collect, and how you keep track and all that stuff.
Exactly right. Obviously, and we have one entity providing the service, we have another entity permitting it. and tracking it. So yeah, there's opportunities to miss something. There's opportunities for, we don't want to be punitive to a business. We want to give them the opportunity to, you know, not only have a safe environment for their customers and their employees, but also the opportunity to pay that at, you know, at the best time. It might be, might come around for them to pay that, but obviously there's some point when we're being billed, the city's being billed for Central Mason, we want to recoup those fees to offset that cost at the same time. So we're kind of juggling that, trying to find what the best fit is, but it's a little more labor intensive than it was before with the flat fee, and that's what we're seeing inefficiencies being created, more labor, especially with reduced staffing. And what's going to serve our community, make our community safe, as well as be the most efficient process for us. So you'll probably be seeing a proposal that would go back, or at least compare the two processes, so you could consider those in the future.
Because we paid for the complete fire marshal, correct, before we changed it.
Not in its entirety, no. No, it was a $60,000 annual payment, obviously didn't pay for all the services, but they're providing services throughout
Yeah,
the district as well.
yeah, and so yes, the answer is that you put that rate, a flat fee. And we looked at doing the other way, and we discussed more, I'll bring it up some other time, we discussed some other options. Or however,
Right, you want to see a fire truck?
so we have any questions?
I mean, do you have any questions, or do you have anything else that you want to bring up to the council that maybe the next 10 years we're gonna need to look at?
Now I'm talking my head. That's your question.
Ask these guys in the back, but ask Mustache back there.
No, I do want to say this again, I think the relationship between the city of Shelton and Central Mason has gone very well. I have friends of mine in other departments, chiefs that I talk to that, you know, they're like, wow, you know, how was this managed to do this whole time? And I said, we just have really good people, and I think the big thing is we're able to talk to each other, you know, Mara's not afraid to pick up the phone. Jeff before he wasn't afraid to pick up the phone. You know, I'm not afraid to pick up the phone and say, hey, we need, let's do a minor course correction now, so this doesn't turn into a big problem down the road. And we've been able to do that, and I think that has, I compliment the city for that, and also the council and the employees and of the city for making that work. Because, you know, sometimes we have competing agendas, they're not always the same, you know, and but we get along with them, so I thank everybody for that.
At the end of the day, the common goal is public safety, right? So if we keep that in mind, set some of the other issues aside to reach that common goal, and it's not too hard, right? It's not too hard for us to work together.
So. Good. Just want to sit on our truck. Who wants to climb to the top?
I like it. Not
Huh?
Karen told me what he'd be there.
Doesn't he have 63 dogs he wants to?
All right, is this, nobody else come back in?
All right.
Nah, they're
We're all here?
Except-
Yeah,
All right, does the council have any new item for discussion? I just have a question, maybe so the whole council, so apparently that in July, the county is going to clear some homeless camps up there by the railroad tracks, and I want to know if we have a plan for when they all come back into town. I know that I attended a meeting last week and it didn't sound like there was any plans.
yeah, there's another meeting this Friday. Dave Wyndham with Mason County Public Health is coordinating. Yeah, certainly there wasn't as much, I think definitive plan from last week's meeting. Hopefully there's more of an effort, more of, I think, a collaborative effort to make sure those individuals are receiving some of the services they're provided more information on what services are available. The only shelter provider wasn't at the meeting last week. I believe they will be there this week, so hopefully, that's an opportunity to make sure those individuals get there, but beyond that. Yeah, I think we'll certainly see that influx that we're talking about above the yacht club on Highway 3 at the Navy Railroad property, and the individuals will be coming this way as closest place to services, so we'll continue working with some of the service providers, but long term, I guess we can wait around and see what happens, or we continue working with some of these providers, I guess, with a plan on what's next.
Councilmember Sapp and I joined the Crossroads team going up there. We saw at 11 noonish, we saw maybe 15 people total. So I imagine
Yeah.
there's probably, if we were there at peak hours, maybe there'd be more, probably double that, I would think. But so I just want to know that what we're gonna do when they show up downtown. So if we got a plan, if we can, this meeting Friday, if we can get the county to, help us out a little bit.
So in the meantime, programs like Crossroads and Youth Connection have been going out there, letting them know in advance, this is going to happen. Here's some services so that you're not caught off guard, and they have been really proactive and they will continue to do
Well,
that.
I understand that, but there's gonna be the ones that aren't gonna go into the community lifeline. They're not gonna go. They don't want the services. They're just gonna hang out. So, and I do know Crossroads. I went up there with them,
Right.
so I realize that they're doing that, but we are seeing people already come in, and people have are already telling Crossroads that they've already come in because they've been told that the camp's gonna be clean, so. Then, so yeah, it's getting a little busier downtown, so I don't know if we got a plan, if we can, what we can do. Maybe it's time to talk about that mitigation site that we need to figure out here one of these days, so. But any other questions on that?
No, I think I'm actually gonna go to the Crossroads tomorrow and go there and see if I can help them. Those applications, some people, some services.
Cool.
So the more often they're offered, eventually hopefully they'll accept it, because a lot of times the first time you offer services, they're gonna say no, and the second time they'll say no, but then maybe does accept services, and then they're like, okay, maybe I should too. If you just keep bugging them, maybe they
Or
will.
maybe as time gets closer,
Yeah.
others start, yeah.
Mhm.
You're going, what time are you going tomorrow?
Oh,
Real sad, not everybody is, a street zombie. We met a lady down at the very end of the tracks that has a job, money, bank account, just not enough to live, not enough to get a place to live. And there's nothing in Crossroads, and she fled domestic violence. There's nothing in Turning Point for her, and she's been up there for 3 or 4 months. She's been up there. And she said, I got a job, I got enough money for first and last. She said, but there ain't nowhere for her to live, nowhere for her to afford to live. So that's pretty sad, because all we hear is people that are just bleeding society, but there's people up there that
It's not just that.
actually just can't afford to live. So, but that was my question. So,
I'll provide council an update from the Friday meeting with Department of Health and the service providers.
cool. Any other new items for discussion? And this meeting is adjourned at 7:11 PM.